Greetings and salutations. It is your friendly neighborhood coach and counselor, Zina Grace. Well, good evening and good afternoon, I suppose. Um, Thank you all for tuning in to this channel, to my Facebook page, and also in my Facebook group. Thank you so much for all of your love, encouragement, and support as I obey God and continue to endeavor with shining grace. So, as you all know and have learned from the first video, I am the founder and mastermind behind Shining Grace Inner Healing Coaching Ministries. And so for me, the goal and the purpose of Shining Grace Inner Healing Coaching Ministries is to help everyday young women and girls to begin to do the inner work and the inner healing of any past trauma or experiences that may have block them or sideline them from becoming the best version of themselves. Because I am a fan of, and I think the world is a fan of, in a more better place with happy, healed, and whole women and girls and people in general. So felt um, I felt a burden on my heart of some sorts to do a video. Hopefully, it'll be quick and be brief. A quick video about grief and about loss. I just felt that come up in my spirit heavy, and so for me, that was an inkling and an indicator that this was exactly where I needed to go. And I hope that this topic and this discussion will be of use to you, and it will be of healing to you. So I have my notes here to the side that I am going to refer to because I just like to be streamlined. I like to make sure that I'm getting things out that I want to say, and at the same time, just being mindful and aware of the camera. So, this is my second video, and I'm learning how to do both. Okay, so this video is titled How to Heal from Loss. How to heal from loss. And so in this video, I have 6 steps. I have 6 steps for you in helping you along in your inner healing journey with grief and with loss. Okay, so to just start off, first and foremost, I just want to let you all know and to be aware that there is no such thing as one form of loss or as one stage of loss. For loss and grief can come in many different forms. There are the heavier and weightier forms of grief and loss, like the death of a parent, the death of a child, um, the loss of a career, or loss of job, or a loss of a marriage or a relationship or a spouse. And so grief and loss, it can take place in many different forms, just depending on the type of person you are, and depending on the background in which it is that you come from. So I just wanted to first and foremost get that out of the way. However, there are quote unquote like typical or traditional stages of grief. that are described as the five stages of grief by David Kessler. So those five stages of grief are number one is denial and isolation. So during this first stage of grief and loss, there is this tendency or this need to deny the loss even happened and to subsequently isolate yourself because you don't believe that this can be happening or that is happening to you. Number two is anger. Anger. I remember when I was going through this process initially of, I guess, grieving. Like I was grieving leading up to like the loss of my mom because I knew that her time was coming up. I knew it was near. And so I remember a close friend of mine, and when she watches this video, she is going to know who she is. You know, I'm not going to reveal her name because I don't want to, you know, reveal her personal information without getting clearance from her first. So a close friend of mine, I remember her telling me this and it stuck with me. And at the beginning, I didn't understand, like, why is she telling me this? Like, what can this absolute, like, what does this have to do with me grieving? And so what she told me was to make sure that I'm not engaging in arguments with people or like my family because loss or grief tends to bring up a lot of anger. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, why would she tell me that? Like, that's the last thing I need to hear. But then I remember, I remember when this was after I had lost my mom, that the anger like was starting to come up like with different certain like familial conversations and interactions, and the one thing that like grinded my grits or burned my grits was my interactions with my aunt's husband. It was really rough for me to interact with him because I first and foremost I knew the relationship that my mom had with him was not favorable. And I think, I don't know, it was just like maybe somehow I absorbed that anger or something like that, because it was just like I just wanted to pop off. Like I wanted to explode on him. Like I wanted to go from A to Z, from 1 to 100. And I wanted to go Chi-Town wild on him, so to speak. But I remember what my friend telling me about the anger and how it manifests itself. And then also, too, me being a believer, I realized that I had to learn, and I have learned to keep my mouth closed and to keep my tongue in check, because the tongue is a small part of the body, but it can get you in trouble. And in that situation, I remembered what my friend told me about anger, and then the Holy Spirit told me to be quiet, and so I just let it be. But then for me, it was just important for me to acknowledge that. Acknowledgement and identification is always key. And we're going to talk about that later as I move forward. Okay, so step 3 in the 5 stages of grief is bargaining. Like bargaining. For example, it can look like, well, I'll never drink again, or I never smoke again if my husband comes back to me, or if I can get my son back, or something along those lines. Number 4 is depression. Number 4 is depression. Um, it may be a situational depression. It may be that the impact of the loss has just sent you head first into depression. And fifth The fifth and final stage is acceptance. So this is where you accept that a loss has taken place. You accept that there is pain associated with this loss, and you accept that you are no longer the person that you were. And also, too, you are in a new state of learning how to cope and learning how to live um, in the absence of having this person around or having this situation be a part of your life. And so, as I mentioned in the beginning, just because these are like the traditional five stages of grief, at times it's not necessarily, sequential. When I say sequential, like it means that they're not always definitely going to take place in this order. Like grief and loss is not like a cookie cutter one and done thing. Like it's a continual process. Like there are days and times when you just go into a depression and you have no idea why. Or there's times where you feel like you want to knock somebody out and you don't know why. When you initially are going through a grief or a loss. So I just wanted to put that out there to just let you know that there is flexibility. There is flexibility in your journey to healing from loss and grief. So now I am going to transition into my own personal tips and tricks from healing from grief and loss. So, first and foremost, before I go into this, when you're dealing with anything involving grief, loss, feelings, emotions, and things like that, it is important and crucial to have a level of, first and foremost, willingness, because it's painful. Like I'm not gonna cookie cutter, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is painful. It's painful when you experience a loss. It's painful when you experience grief. So that's why, first and foremost, when you are wanting to heal from it and work through it and move through it, there needs to be a heart of willingness that says, okay, I know this is hard, but I'm willing to explore. I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to investigate a different part of myself in this journey. Because in my experiences, like I've learned the most of out of my deepest losses and my deepest griefs. I've learned the most about myself and who I am and what I need to do and where I need to go from that process, because grief and loss is not meant to keep us stuck. It is not meant to keep us stuck. It is meant to show us different parts of ourselves. It's meant to um, push us forward in being who it is that we want to be, and being who it is that we were called to be. That's my personal experience. That's my perspective, and that's been my journey with grief and loss. But for some people, it may not be that way. It is my job and it is my calling to be able to get you to that point where you are able to have a different perspective about your loss and your grief process. So that's first and foremost. Second is just having a level of self-awareness um, when you're approaching the work that's involved with healing from loss and grief, because sadly and unfortunately, it tends to be our human nature to blame. If I like to use the story of Adam and Eve as an example, because that's a prime example of our forefathers or foremothers or what have you being in the garden And when Eve ate the fig or whatever type of fruit that it was, and God asked him like, "Hey, like what's going on? Like why y'all looking like, why y'all naked?" And she responds, and he responds, "It was her. She gave it to me." And so it's just like, completely and utterly to blame Eve for everything. So even then, that just goes to show that it is in our human nature, it's in our DNA to point fingers and to blame. And so when you're healing from grief and loss, it's no different. It's no different. It is our in our nature to point fingers and put our issues and put our grief and our pain onto somebody else. It's like, for example, if you're dealing with, the loss of a job, or a career in which you love, like your instinct is going to be to point to your supervisor or your boss. Well, it was him. Like, he shouldn't have fired me. He was the one that fired me, and if he wouldn't have fired me, then I would have still been here. And if I would have still been there, I wouldn't be going through the things that I'm going through. Blah, 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 blah. The list goes on and on and on. So that's just an example of how blame can manifest itself. And so for me and for everyone, it's just better for one to have a level of self-awareness about what's going on with your own feelings, with your own experience, in your own body, in your own heart, in order for you to be able to identify action steps to move forward. So this is not to say, and by any means, um, that anyone is blaming anyone for anything, or that's like, something that you're doing, or whatever. Like, I don't know why grief happens. I don't know why loss happens. But for me, like, I'm not God. I can only come to my own conclusions about what it has meant in my life and what it has meant for me that I am sharing with you. So with that being said, this is something that you can either agree with or you can disagree with. That's totally fine. You are totally 100% welcome to your own feelings, thoughts, and opinions. So, just going to go right into those 6 steps that I talked about. So, the first step is for you to identify. Identify. And so, there's going to be a theme of identification, because this is sort of like, if I'm looking at this like a stage, or like something that builds upon the other, I'm looking at this as like the identification stage, which is like the initial stage of anything, the initial stage of a relationship, the initial stage of starting a book or a business or whatever have you. So identification is important. So first, you want to identify, where are you experiencing loss? Where are you experiencing loss? As I mentioned earlier, loss can take form of losing a loved one, a spouse, a parent. Loss can take place losing a career or a job, losing a relationship. It can be you losing things while you're transitioning to a different city. Or so first and foremost, identify, what areas are you experiencing grief or loss? Number 2, identify, what ways is the grief or the loss manifesting itself as pain? And what ways is the grief or loss manifesting itself as pain? So a lot of times with grief and loss, there tends to be a delayed reaction. And it becomes a delayed reaction because whenever we feel something uncomfortable, as humans, our tendency is to want to cover it up because we aren't initially built to handle pain. We aren't initially built to experience pain. But, because of the fall of man and, Adam and Eve and sin enter into the world and all of those things, unfortunately, pain has become a part of the human experience. And pain is a powerful source. It's a powerful motivator. Um, Pain is it's powerful. It's a powerful catalyst. And so, but when we're talking about grief and loss, a lot of times the pain gets numbed or it gets dull. So you can't even identify where it's coming from. You don't even know where it is. You don't know where it's manifesting. You don't know, why where the extra drinks are coming from. Where the extra guys are coming from. You don't know, why your temper is so short. And things of that nature. So just important to identify the ways that pain is manifesting for you. Pain can manifest, in your body, muscle cramps, muscle spasms, muscle aches, headaches, stomach aches, like all of those things. Number three, which is tied into number two, is to identify your current coping mechanisms and ask yourself, is it working for you? How is it working for you? As I mentioned, some popular go-to current coping mechanisms when we're experiencing loss and grief is can be anything from overeating to overconsumption of alcohol, overconsumption of weed, overconsumption of sex, just anything in excess. Because as I mentioned, whenever us humans experience pain, it's just like, we just automatically wanna run to the first, quickest, easiest, dirtiest thing, to get it done, to get it over with. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way because it comes out in different ways. It comes out in different ways. So why not work through it the healthy way? Why not try and find a healthy alternative other than damaging and destroying your health and your well-being and your body? Um, so number four, which transitions me into number four, is to identify healthier coping mechanisms. I know for me, when I was going through this journey of grief and loss after my mom, my tendency and my initial reaction was to resort to drinking and overeating because those were my go-to past coping habits and mechanisms. But then I realized that, hey, uh, I'm drinking a little bit too much. I'm eating a little bit too much, and as a result, I'm getting sick. As a result, I feel even worse than I was when I lost her. So for me, that was a red flag, and that was an alert that I was getting too out of control, and that things had to change. And so for me, that's when I started seeking out grief counseling. That's when I put myself on a healthier meal plan. I cut out sugar and alcohol and all of those addictive foods for me, the pizzas and the processed food and things like that. And I got back in church and, of course, journaling, writing, singing, talking to friends, uh, reading the scriptures, reading books about the topic, about grief and loss of a loved one. So those are the things that helped me to shift my energy and to get to this point of healing. So today I can honestly say that I am in a positive place of healing and grieving the loss of my mom, because I have the support of my grief counselor. I'm a part of an amazing church that nourishes me and edifies me and builds me up. Um, I'm walking in my purpose, sharing this video with you all, creating content, working on a program for Shining Grace. What else? Making great changes and progress in my eating habits and things of that nature. And so for me, it has been a journey, but I'm happy with where I am, as opposed to where I was a few months ago around this whole um, process and around this whole phase, because nobody is perfect. And um, just because I'm a Christian does not mean that I'm exempt. I'm not exempt from pain. I'm not exempt from grief. And there is a human part of me and a human side of me that, wants to do his own thing and wants to go his own way, and wants to go to something else other than God for comfort. And so I'm not afraid to admit that that's a place where I've been. I'm not ashamed at all to admit that that is sometimes a dark place that I have retreated back to. But as you grow and you get as you grow and as you do the work and as you heal those times that you run astray or go to the dark side or the dark place, so to speak, is few and far between. And there's more light, there's more energy for good things to come in and for you to manifest the good things it is that you want to have and that God ultimately wants you to have. And so that goes into number 5, which is getting support. Getting support is important. Like I said, for me, I went to grief counseling. I still do go to grief counseling. I went to a grief support group. So I did all of those things, and it was extremely beneficial and helpful for me. And number 6, last but not least, is to be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Like I said in the beginning, loss is hard. Grief is hard. And if somebody told you different, then I'm here to tell you that they lying. Hmm. So it's not easy by all means. And the last thing that you need is to keep beating yourself upside the head with, things that you could have done but you didn't do, or you didn't say that, um or you didn't do that, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. Like, this is the time for you to show a higher level of self-compassion for yourself, a higher level of love and kindness for yourself, because ultimately that is what's going to be the catalyst to move you forward. Love is greater than pain. Love is greater than fear. Why? Because love is God. And lastly, I just wanted to encourage you all with a scripture in Psalms. I don't have my Bible around me, but it goes something like this: that the Lord. So this is a paraphrase. So this scripture in the Psalms mentioned that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. So that is my encouragement and support to you during this journey, that you are not alone. Like, that's, if I had a signature message, it would be that you are not alone. And so that is all that I have here for this time. Thank you all so much for subscribing. I send you all grace and peace and mercy for your journey as you all work through this. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I am an inner healing coach, and it is my journey and mission and calling to help support you during the hard emotional times in your life. And so I have a Facebook page which you are able to like and follow as well for updates, information. I have this YouTube channel, Shining Grace, and I also have a new website, Shining Grace Inner Healing Coaching Ministries. It's a Wix site, but I'll attach all of those things in the description box. I should be able to do that. I think I could do that. I think I could swing that. So, yes, that is all I have. It has been a pleasure sharing this information with you all. I hope that you find it helpful. Please, 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 please continue to watch, like, comment, follow, subscribe. I love the dialogue. I love the interaction and engagement. So if you have any stories or any experiences about, your healing and lost journey, you can feel free to post that information on my page, or you can feel free to post your thoughts and comments or stories in the description box. And also to lastly, I know this is a lot. This is also my website, but I am also offering discovery calls to people, 45 minutes individual consult, one-on-one calls with me. If you need additional support and processing around this topic, I am here for you. You are not alone. If you just go visit my website, then you can fill out the book a session link, and then I will get back to you within 1 to 2 business days. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. And you all have a fantastic night. Bye bye.